I don't have time to keep up with the latest fitness fads and celebrity workouts. I just need a fitness and nutrition plan that actually gets results. Caliber is a top-rated, science-based fitness program completely customized to my needs and abilities, designed around my schedule. An expert personal trainer keeps me motivated so I stay consistent and see results. Get $100 off Caliber today at caliberstrong.com/podcast. That's caliberstrong.com/podcast.
This podcast is sponsored by Skylight Frame. If you're looking for a great holiday gift, there is nothing more meaningful than a Skylight digital picture frame. Skylight is a touchscreen frame that everyone in the family can send photos to from anywhere, and they'll pop up in seconds. It is the perfect gift for new families, parents, and grandparents, or anyone who has all of their photos stuck on their phone. With Skylight, you can actually preload photos before you give it as a gift, without even opening the box. Once it's unwrapped and plugged in, the frame will light up with all those special memories. Surprise your loved ones this year with a beautiful Skylight frame, now available in multiple sizes and colors. Grab yours today because they're very popular and sell out around the holidays. For a limited time, you can get $15 off your purchase when you go to skylightframe.com/Mary. That's right. To get $15 off your Skylight frame, just go to skylightframe.com/Mary. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/Mary.
A choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this very special episode, we have Rachel Horton White joining us from Soulful Work Intuitive Counseling. Rachel is a clinical hypnotherapist, a mindfulness teacher, intuitive guide, and super amazing. Now, that last bit's not in her bio, but I added it because it's absolutely accurate. Now, we talk a lot about the Akashic readings, in which she reads quite a bit of, and she's fascinating. We also talk about ascended masters, healing through the Akashic, expanding our light bodies, the power of energy. Absolutely incredible conversation. Y'all are really going to enjoy this one. So all of the ways, of course, to reach Rachel will be located down in the show notes. Take advantage of that. While you're down in the show notes checking that out as well, check out our resource links. You've got Food Forest Abundance. We have Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. If you'd like to start your own podcast, we just partnered with Red Circle. There's a link in the show notes titled Start Your Own Podcast. I highly encourage anybody who even has half an itch, go ahead and do it. It's been the coolest thing I've ever done. I highly recommend it. As well, check the show notes for the Manifestor's Guide, guys. If you really want to step your game up to the next level, there's an offer there that is a scholarship offer that he has just for you, the listeners of this show, as well at checkout. If you type in Expanding Reality, all caps, no spaces, you get an even sweeter deal on top of that. So if you're ready to change your life, click that link. If not, that's okay. No worries. It'll be there whenever you are. Now, also located down in the show notes is going to be expandingrealitypodcast.com. That is where links to all the socials go, all the merchandise. If you want to get a cool t-shirt, it's there, as well as all of the lives are replayed, Too Hot for YouTube, all the good stuff. But while you're over there, go ahead and sign up to become an Expansive Insider. That's where all the bonus episodes are, and that is a wonderful way to support the show that supports you in expanding your reality. Now, also, this is a value for value system. So if you find any value in the show whatsoever, there's a link down there that says support the mission. And feel free to invest as much or as little as you'd like. It all helps, and I'm truly grateful for everyone that's been so supportive and in alignment with expanding your reality. All right, guys, now that we got through that, let's get to this incredible conversation with Rachel Horton White. Welcoming to the show, we have Rachel Horton White hanging out with us. Soulful Work, very cool. Now, I thought of something also, counseling. What do you think about that?
consulting and counseling. What's the difference?
Yeah.
I came up with consulting because I thought I was going to be going into businesses, and I was sharing like mindfulness and consciousness. And then quickly somebody actually told me I was too weird for them. I was too out there for them. So that I don't do that anymore, but haven't changed the name yet. Probably
I love
should.
it. Well, I was thinking of spelling it consulting, S-O-U-L, right?
Console.
Yeah.
That's good.
There you go. That one's on the house. You can have it.
Thank you.
Clinical hypnotherapist, mindfulness teacher, and intuitive guide. You're amazing. First of all, just for the audience's sake here, all the ways to find you, of course, will be located down in the show notes. You guys make sure that you check her out. I only have the most amazing people on here, and she's one of them. So Ben Carroll is a mutual friend of ours. So how did you meet Ben?
Oh, man. Ben is originally from Maine, as I am, and we connected about 7 years ago, and I honestly can't even remember how. I think maybe a mutual friend. And he was part of this meditation group that I started. And so we would just hang out, and he told me his interesting story of how he was in this famous rock band. And now he left all that and started doing sound healing. I just really liked him. We just really hit it off. We became friends, and we've done some workshops together, and he's just such a genuinely amazing, kind, awake person. He's one of a kind. So we just have mutual respect and admiration for each other. And then he and Ginny, they're friends of our family now. So yeah.
I love it. And so this meeting of you and I was inevitable because Janine and him are family of, Expanding Reality, and me as well. So this works out perfectly. And it was so nice of you to join us on that Ultra Terrestrials chat the other night for the Expansive Insiders. That was so awesome. You crushed it.
Oh, such an honor for me to be there with such cool people. So thank you.
It's so much fun. So I want to start it. Let's just kick it off. If you don't mind, for folks that don't know a little bit more than what I just said about you there, just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, what I really am doing in my work is helping people expand into their highest and best selves. And the way I do that is I work with people on one-on-one quite a bit. And I'm helping them kind of open their third eye, open their intuition, clear away ego, fear, doubt, and help them learn to just trust themselves and connect with their inner beings. There's a little bit of teaching involved, like what sorts of divine guidance they might be comfortable connecting with. So, I don't always say this because I do try to work with people who are in the beginning stages of awakening, but I'm really helping them ascend into 5D consciousness. So yeah, and I do that through different ways, hypnotherapy, helping them clear what's held in the subconscious, Akashic records, helping them access the superconscious, what their past lives and their soul purpose and lessons they're here to learn in this life. I have a podcast where I do a lot of meditations, and I teach people how to read the Akashic records, and I teach different like angel classes. So, I'm teaching people how to become an intuitive guide like me as well. So I enjoy doing that as well, like paying it forward. So I kind of pick up different things along the way. I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. No, I'm going to do this. So I'm just such a blessing. I didn't always do this. So I started about 7 or 8 years ago. So it's been an interesting journey.
It's incredible. And that's how Ben described you to me. We were on a phone call and he was like, oh my God, I have the most amazing person. You got to have her on. And he said she just likes something and then gets certified in it, and likes something and gets certified in it. Like, you're just an expert in so many different things. And it's cool
funny
because it gives you such a well-rounded perspective on this. And, you're offering yourself more perspectives. Again, so this invites in a greater understanding and awareness as far as your tools in your toolbox to be able to help people and relate to people. Because we all know, like, I don't do well with like sitting meditations. I just know this about myself, right? They just don't work for me. But I know that walking meditations are all mow. I've got a 0-turn mower, so I call it meditation, and it takes like hours to mow this yard. So it's a very similar like kinetic process, and I need to do this. But for you to dip into so many different expertises, and then to be able to dip into that and be like, ooh, I like a little bit of this, and I like a little bit of that, and this works really, really well for healing people. So have you discovered that just being outside of one particular discipline in this, if we call it that's really broadened the scope of service that you've been able to provide?
Yeah, so I first started out thinking I was just, I started going through this awakening process in 2015, and that's when I started waking up. And I was really interested in energy and vibration and the concept of how we can kind of create our own realities. And I was teaching, I wanted to do workshops on that. And so I was doing that. But then I actually was in meditation, and the phrase Akashic Records just came in meditation. I didn't even know what it was. And I was curious about it. And I'd always done tarot. I used to do tarot readings for people. I still do sometimes, but tarot was kind of like my gateway drug to all this, sort of intuitive work. But so I got a reading, and then I was like, this is amazing. Akashic Records is absolutely, I was just fascinated. And then I started doing that. And then at the same time, I was like, I want to learn more. So I went back to school, and I learned hypnotherapy. It was a Southwest Institute for Healing Arts in Arizona. And so I learned hypnotherapy and do past life regression. So it's kind of all connected, like working, diving in deep into the subconscious mind, and not just in this life, but in other lives. And so that, and of course, in my spare time, I like to read about the truth. It's about Jesus. And I read like channeled messages from the Pleiadians and all that stuff. But I feel like I'm always learning and growing. And, there's so much to learn about. There's so much. It's just absolutely amazing.
And it's so much fun. It's like you check the other box, on the other side to come into this life or whatever. You said, yeah, give me the package. I want to do all the cool stuff.
Pretty much.
So do you consider yourself like a medium? Do you feel that you channel specific entities?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, I suppose the answer would be yes on the one hand. When I'm in the Akashic Records, there are people like deceased loved ones that will come through, and I'll connect with their energy and share that with people. I do sometimes do channeling of like Archangel Michael or Jesus or whoever wants to come in, and I'll write it down. I don't like speak it out loud, but I have a little thing where I don't call myself that, because I choose not to do mediumship, like for, strictly mediumship. The form of mediumship I guess I would do would be in the Akashic Records. And there's a reason for that, because I've had a few attachments, like spirit attachments, and that's annoying. I don't like that, So where I like the deceased person, which is, it's all well and good, but I'll give you one example. I did a reading for a woman in the Akashic Records whose son had passed, and he, at a young age, when he was a teenager, and she was really distraught. And so I connected with him, and I was just sharing what was coming through for him, trying to help her because she was so, deep grief. And then when I went home that night, I went up to my bathroom, or I was in the bathroom, and this has never happened before, but the lights were flickering on and off. And I knew it was him. And I was like, okay, what are you doing here? And the message, I just closed my eyes, and the message was, I want you to help my mom. I was like, okay, I'm going to help your mom, but you have to leave. You cannot be here. You have to leave. And it stopped, and he went away. And then I've had another thing like that happen with somebody who committed suicide. And that was more serious, like an attachment, like I was carrying her energy. And so I tried, this is a long answer to your question, but usually that doesn't happen anymore unless I invite it in. That's why I have to be really careful of like, if I'm thinking about that spirit or the client, I have to be like, okay, no, shut those off, because then I'm bringing that energy in. Right. And with the suicide, it was somebody that I knew, and I was reading about in the paper, and I was fascinated, like, what happened? I was like, oh my gosh, I just invited that energy in. Like, why? I should have known better. So, but the Akashic Records protects me because it's a container of light, and it's filled with divine energy. So I suppose it is a little bit like that, but it's a short amount of time. And I spend more time when I do readings with people with these light beings known as the masters, and it's very high vibration. And there's no sort of attachment. So yeah, that's just my thing. That's what works for me, I guess.
It's so fascinating. Now, do you consider just as you're describing it here, something, because it's challenging for folks like me who aren't contactees. I don't really, have these overt experiences that I can go, hell yeah, that was Archangel Michael or anything like that. I'm just not like that. And that's okay. I feel like I'm meant to remain objective, and I'm fine with it. But it's tricky for me, and I know probably a few people out there in the audience as well, to visualize what we're talking about when we're talking about the Akashic Records. I mean, in my mind, when you're talking about it, it sounds like a like a bubble, like an out of bounds zone for anything bad happening, kind of like the Switzerland of the spirit world where nobody's fighting, nobody's battling. And it has just like this awesome like library of information. Am I far off or pretty close?
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly what it is. And, when I first learned the Akashic Records, I learned from this woman named Linda Howe, who's a very well-known sort of Akashic Records teacher. She didn't explain it that way, which I kind of appreciate because she didn't want us to have a preconceived idea of what to expect. So when the Akashic Records is mentioned in the Bible in different religious texts as the book of life. And some people, and it's also, if you look up a definition, it will literally say it's like a library or like, a hallway. And but everybody's experience in the Akashic Records is different. So the way I perceive it will be different than the way you perceive it. But for me personally, that's exactly how I do experience it. It's just this infinitely long, like hallway of soupy, smoky light. That's the best way to describe it. And you look in either direction and there's actually things like the past lives are held. And I'm kind of giving everybody my own perception. Hopefully it won't cloud or it won't influence their accessing it. But I perceive a past lives as like little boxes or like a drawer you pull out, getting into a past life. There's also the masters, of course, who I also often, this is cool. I see them sitting like a semicircle, like the Jedi Council in Star Wars. They literally look like, there's so much truth in movies, as they literally look like, and they look like, some of them have hoods. Some of them, one guy I see a lot in my records is bald, he looks like a bald Buddhist monk or something. And then there's a really old guy and there's an old woman. And then the rest I don't really see. I just know they're there. And I don't always see their faces. Sometimes it just, I have to ask. But then there's deceased loved ones that will show up. There's ascended masters like Jesus or Mother Mary. The Pleiadians or Arcturians, these multi-dimensional beings will come in over here. It's very interesting how like the positioning. It's just I could literally talk about it all day long because it's just absolutely unbelievably fascinating. And I hope that someday everybody, you included, because you're asking me about it, so your vibration is close to it. Everybody could access their own Akashic Records and just like, why am I experiencing this? Oh, it's because of that past life I just had. What's going on in this? What's happening in this situation? Why is this? Was there a lesson I'm supposed to be learning? Go on the Akashic Records. Oh yeah, it's about forgiveness, or it's about resolving this karmic thing. So it's just so powerful and healing. I just cannot even, it's been life-changing for me.
It seems like such a cool cheat code, and I could hear you talk about it forever as well. So I definitely, I'd like for you to kind of elaborate a little bit more on it. But something that it really feels like to me is, again, this, like you have access at a certain vibrational point. So it's interesting that you put that way, because that's a question I had for you. Do you need to be at a certain vibrational level, let's say, even though it's not hierarchical or frequency or on a certain station, we'll put it there, like a record, like a radio, and to tune into this thing, because then it's kind of cool, because then it seems like just something that's there. It's a part of life, but it's a part of all life. So other entities, other people on other planets, it's kind of a cool, almost like a chat room that you can kind of meet up in, even though we're separated by the world, like we've got, Zoom and stuff, and we can kind of meet up, and even like Minecraft or something, this game that these kids play, and they can like build things and create stuff there. It seems like at a vibrational level, which is interesting too, because it's almost like it's got a bouncer outside the door that says, hey, the 3D lizard turds, you're pretty in your root chakra. Let's maybe go back and work on you a little bit and then come back, what I mean? Go change those shoes spiritually, right?
Yep.
So, so have you ever scheduled like a meeting with people whenever you go there? Like, do you go in with intention to like learn a certain thing, or do you just go, you know what, I'm just going to go kick around the old Akashic for a little bit, like you're walking around in a mall with no clear reason for being there? You know what I mean?
You mean like if somebody, because I could just go into my own records and I can explain a little about what it is, because everybody had like how it connects to a specific person. So like you have your own Akashic Records based on your soul and all your past lives. I have my own Akashic Records based on my soul and my past lives. There are, the Akashic Records basically is, what's the formal definition? Something like the record of every human situation, event, and experience that has ever existed throughout time, all in this one place. So, I actually haven't, I think I tried it in the beginning, like, okay, can I just go into like the Akashic records for everything?
Yeah.
I think,
like, instead of your profile, can you access the whole feed? You know what I mean?
I can access it through my Akashic records. But if I said, like, if right now, like, I'm going to go into Brandon's Akashic records, I wouldn't be able to get in unless you gave me permission. So it would probably just be dark, or it would be messed up. It wouldn't work because you have free will and you give me permission. It would be ethically wrong for me to do that. But you can go read the records of like anything that is like yours. So your dog, with the pet, they still do have free will. So I've tried it with my dog, my old dog, and the way I sat next to her, and she got up and walked away, and I was like, all right, she doesn't.
You do like a give me five, if you want to do it, and they're like, hell yeah,
right?
Like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And your records.
Well, they would just stay there. My other dog, our new dog, I haven't actually tried it for her, but I've tried doing Reiki on her, and she will sit there and let me do it. So anyway, but you could go into the Akashic records of a building, like if it's a building that you own a part of or own all of, even if you just like rent an apartment in it, you could go in there. You could go in the Akashic records for business, which I've done for my own business because it's like an entity. So, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think, but you said something before that I do want to mention about, can anybody just go in, like vibrationally, do you have to be ready? So the answer is, you could try, like if somebody, so this has happened before. So the short answer is, to access your Akashic records, you do have to be vibrationally ready and aligned. Otherwise, you're just not, it's not that you're going to, well, actually, that's not true. I've had a few clients say, I tried to go in and somebody told me no.
The bouncer. I'm telling you, it's the bouncer. Yeah.
Yes, there is because here's the thing. It's the truth.
Yeah.
It shows the truth. It's kind of like, when you start to awaken and you want to know what the truth of reality is and all what's going on. And somebody asks you and you're like, do you really want to know? Because once I tell you, your reality might change forever. Your world will change forever. And so I've actually had this happen. I once did I did a retreat. I was the Akashic records was part of the retreat, and the people at the retreat, the owners of the farm that we were at, they were like, "Oh, I'm going to come in and listen to your Akashic records thing. That sounds really cool." And I was like, "Okay," and I was like, I don't think they're quite ready, like they, and that's, I don't mean to say that in like a arrogant sort of way, but if you're not used to, if you're not meditating or going into altered states of consciousness, or your third eye isn't open, it's just too much. It's like, it's like trying to run a marathon when you haven't even trained. It's too much. So they came in and the wife, like the phone rang. And as I was talking about it, the wife just goes, "Oh, I got to go answer the phone." So she left, she's gone. And then the husband is sitting there and he's listening a little more. And then something happens. He just gets up and leaves. And I was like, yep. I figured that would happen. They just weren't, like, they got a little close to it, but they weren't quite ready, because we actually went in the Akashic records. I guided everybody in through this prayer. So that is absolutely true.
It's so cool.
Yes.
We've got to do this sometime, because I'm just so curious about this. I've had Amy Belair went into mine, and my wife's actually. We did both, and it turns out my wife and I have been together for quite a long time. It's pretty cool.
I would be more than happy to. I love doing readings. It's like so fun for me to do.
So much fun. And then Christopher, the astro medium, who was on that panel with us, he came out and hung out at our place for a weekend, a couple days, and he was doing, some things about the land, and he, was tapping into some energies that were on this land, thousands of years ago, because we're right here in North Texas. So we're at the northern part of the hill country, and it's just, there's a lot of Native American, the Brazos River, which is a super famous river in Texas. It's just 10 minutes down the road from me. So, cool. You find arrow points everywhere. And so he could tap into that. And I just think this is so fascinating. Like, I don't feel it, and that's okay. Like, I'm not pushing it. When it's time, it'll be time. But I just still think it's absolutely fascinating. I love what you do.
Well, and let me just say here, I'm going to do my intuitive work on you for a minute, because
please,
you're so close. You talk to people sharing different modalities. So chances are that you're much closer than you think, because you wouldn't even be talking about it. And you have this such awareness anyway. So yeah, I think you'll be surprised that, in a few years from now, you're going to be reading your own Akashic records, or maybe even less than that.
We'll take it. I'm super pumped, and thank you for the faith. And I'm not opposed to it. It's just I haven't yet experienced it, but I'm super pumped.
You will. And so here's the thing I'm going to tell you. Say, instead of saying I'm not, and I'm being so annoying, just say like I'm opening to it. I'm opening to it, because that, as you know, like that phrase will open you to it.
You're right.
Because every word we say, anyway. My God. I'm being a big, giant pain.
No. You're holding me accountable, which I love. And I appreciate that. See, I receive this with an open heart, because I'd say this all the time. Like trying and spending is a cuss word in this household. So same thing. I get the NLP and neuro-linguistic programming.
I do it too.
Right on board.
I do it too.
I love it. Just instead of saying like you're sick, you're healing, right? Or
right,
something
exactly,
like that. Right.
Exactly.
I get it, but applying it to this, you're right. I'm open to receive the magic. I'm open to it. I love it.
There you go. Maybe so.
Let's talk about ascension. So what's going on with the awakening right now? I kind of have a theory that it's there's a bunch of NPCs or non-player characters running around here, and that they're all just kind of switching on right now and being inhabited by souls, which is why we see this wake up. Just a little theory of mine, and it's a deep rabbit hole. We start talking NPCs, and it's also kind of a sensitive one for some people.
I haven't heard that term. What is it? What does NPC stand for?
Oh my God, we're doing this then. NPC stands for non-playable character, which is basically like a video game reference. So if you picture something like, I don't know, a super famous one. I'm not a video game person. I'm not against it. I just don't dedicate the time on it.
Yeah.
I invest my time in other things. If you take like Grand Theft Auto, for instance, and there's a bunch of characters running around, you play one of them, but all those other characters aren't like real players playing a game, right? Yeah. They're just in the background to kind of populate an area. I heard a talk with a guy that said basically that there's only about 100 million souls on this planet, and everyone else is just backdrop characters. It'll blow your mind. Yeah.
Interesting. I've heard theories like that. I think anything's possible.
Absolutely.
I mean, I the way I perceive it is a little bit different than that, but I think, who am I? I mean, I certainly don't have all the answers.
You're Rachel Horton White, and you're amazing.
Yeah, right. I mean, the way I perceive it. What'd you say?
You're one of the 100 million. You're definitely a soul. I can tell, by the way. I've like a great NPC DAR that I've kind of calibrated. I'm like, you're not a real fucking person, are you?
Yeah. Oh, there are definitely people I'm like, what's going on in there? Is there anything in there? Or is it just, it's kind of like Walking Dead. Sorry.
It's like they're tapped into the same frequency. And this is why we say like the 80% of the herd. And we're not talking shit about people here. This conversation, just like getting into the Akashic, takes a level of vibration or awareness just to be able to have. Because then you're like, people aren't real. Then the question you ask, of course, is, have you seen your neighbors bring their groceries in?
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. This is mind blowing. That's a whole nother level of conversation. Nother thing.
Anytime you want to have that chat, we'll do it. Yeah. And actually, I'll get you on an Expansive Insider. We're going to do an NPC chat here pretty soon. So when we do that, I'll make sure that you're invited.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard about walk-ins and things like that.
Same idea.
I'm not. Yeah. I mean, it's like the way I perceive of the ascension, at least, is a little bit different. Cause I think it's all possible. But the way I perceive it is in terms of like soul contract and moving through like kind of levels, I guess. Levels sounds kind of weird, but you're moving from kindergarten up to high school. And, from speaking from personal experience, I always had some intuitive stuff going on, but I was asleep. I was not awake to what's going on. I didn't know. I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't quite get it. And it was really, and actually I got a psychic reading years ago, and she said, when your daughter's born, oh my gosh, every time I say it, just makes me I just felt this emotion. When your daughter is born, she's going to help wake you up. And she was born in 2015. So I have a son who's 10 and my daughter's 7, Alice, her name is. But anyway, and I think that was when my soul pre-incarnation decided that I was going to wake up, that the energies were going to be around me for me to wake up, to step into my soul purpose, to begin to, really, do the light work to help other people awaken. So I think, and there's a 2012 Mayan calendar that we are in this new age of Aquarius, these new 26,000 year, I think something like that cycle. So we're babies in that cycle, but yes, we're like, there's so many humans, all these different lights going off around the planet of people awakening. And I think there's this guy that I follow. I don't know if you know who he is, Tim Wilde. Do you know who he is? You might want to interview him someday. He's British. I think Stuart might know him actually, because I think they follow each other. WHILD. He's just brilliant. He does, Magenta Pixie. Do you know who she is? Yeah, I think he's done some stuff with her. Anyway, I really like him. I don't know him, but I like what he says. So anyway, he was saying the other day something about just this, that, every day, like there's more and more people that are awakening, and we all have these energies around us to help us awaken, but we're not all ready. It's like we're not, just like we were talking about earlier. If it's too much, if it's going to overwhelm us too much for us to see, because once you awaken, and part of the ascension process is moving into your light body, moving out of the density of, your physical body, is seeing the truth through the illusions and the truth about the, evil, nefarious things that have been done to keep our planet in an earth prison for thousands of years, as you know.
Oh. That prison planet idea trips me out. It's the scariest one. And I can really go down the rabbit hole conceptually, and it scares the shit out of me. It's really the most terrifying thing I can think of. Yeah.
The way our consciousness has been manipulated through fear and fed upon and all that.
It's that, but that there's no escape after. That's the part that really trips me out. That there's basically like a grid over our planet that's been installed there by some extraterrestrials. I'm sure you've heard of this. And then basically that whenever we ascend, the trap is going to the light. That's like an archon trap. Go to the light, because it's what they say is it's the moon, and it recycles your soul back here for energy harvesting and loosh. So basically you never ascend, and any reincarnation is kind of more accurate, but also it's not as a means to graduate. They just kind of play you that every time. And perhaps this is what the river of oblivion is, what Samuel Chong called it. Whenever you go through the portal that is your mom, then this is where you forget everything, and then you have to relearn everything and get closer. But that's the prison planet idea is terrifying to me. Like, I hate it. I hate it.
And I think that's interesting. I think I've heard things like that. And that they have, the Anunnaki, and then, the different sort of beings connected to them from thousands of years ago. But I think because we're in this new age, the age of Aquarius, and Earth is moving into 5D consciousness, that we're escaping that. I think some of us might stop incarnating eventually, we just stop coming back to Earth because we've put in our time here. Earth is pretty friggin' hard, like boot camp, to be here. And we're you and I, like, we're here volunteering, like you probably know Dolores Cannon, the waves of volunteers, like here to help the people awaken, and all these children being born, mine are like that. My kids are awake, it's just amazing. Like that they know, I've of course taught them a little bit, but they know what's going on, and they're so young. And like, just thinking about that, it's like, I had no idea I didn't even know what meditation was. I thought it was some weird like cult thing that people did in some other part of the world when I was a kid. I never even did any meditation until I was in my 20s. So the fact these kids, like so many of these kids have these amazing, just awake light being souls, star seeds that in these children's bodies. And of course that's what I won't get into this, but that's, the people who are trying to control things are trying to stop that with all this craziness for the past few years, to try to dampen it, but it's not going to, I don't think it's really going to be successful. Anyway, so yeah, I think there's a lot of hope. That's what I'm getting at, I guess.
A boundless optimist. I share this optimism with you. I really do see it as that all of the lizard turds or the things or whatever, the Klaus Schandl Schwabs, all that stuff, it's here as a means to our ascension. So basically, and it's super overt. It's super overt. And that's why it's overt for us, because we don't need to learn those lessons. We just see them and go, okay, love and compassion for the people that got slipped acid, that don't understand that they're tripping and have never tripped before. And this is kind of, love and compassion, like we kind of talked about. And it feels that though, it seems like the lizard turds, they've got like the key to salvation, and they'll sit there and they'll go, okay, I have the key. Which hand is it? And they'll kind of go, and point to the hand, and they're like, oh, you figured it out. And all it took was for us to just like destroy everything. You could have learned this years ago, but we had to keep taking your rights and making things ridiculous and making them so overt that it's kind of like they're playing to the lowest denominator, and they didn't realize that denominator was pretty damn low.
Yeah. As
and a means
one
to
thing
wake
that makes me
up.
feel, what did you say?
Oh, just as a means of waking everybody up. So I think they're on our team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, there's something, I think maybe we talked about this in our group conversation, but I love this idea, and I really feel like this is true. It's like so many of these people the controllers, the ones who think they control, that's what I just call them. I don't want to even give them that like title is that they actually can control us. They're trying to, but the ones who think they control things, that they were doing that in Atlantis. That was the role they were playing in the times of Atlantis. And so they, as the ones who helped or who contributed to the fall into ego and then this destruction of Atlantis. So they're still playing that role today in some ways. There's probably some other stuff going on in there, like, not so good things, but that's one way of perceiving it. That's part of how humans awaken. And from like a past lives perspective, it's like, how do we learn about freedom? We experience the opposite, oppression, which is what a lot of us have been through in the past few years. How do we learn unconditional love, or how do we learn forgiveness? We experience something so bad that it needs to be forgiven. Just like we were talking about last time too. Like there's a lot of, and I don't know about you, but I've been pretty angry the past few years, angry. And I'm thinking, and now I've reached that point of like, I need to, transmute that and move into forgiveness, because anger just hurts me. It doesn't do anything good for me, but,
it's a great awareness.
It's like,
congratulations.
I see you.
That's one of the hardest ones to get to. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm not 100% there, let me tell you. But
your awareness of it, it makes you a lot closer, like me to the Akashic records. I'm gonna go ahead and say you're there. You're tiptoes over the line because you're so aware of it. So yeah. Just that mindfulness of it's pretty cool. Congrats.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, I definitely have some work to do because how can you not? Like, how can you not?
We all do.
But but I think, the moving towards forgiveness, and that's, what I still need to work on this. And I think a lot of us do, is like, for somebody who is so far from the light, who has barely any light in their soul, they're really working with a lot of darkness. How do we, and this is the only way, one of the only ways that they can become better is to know that they can move towards the light, because, some of them are victims themselves. They've been manipulated, and a lot of them are, most of them are, pretty much all, I guess. And it's like, well, even though you've done these horrible things, like pretty awful, worse than horrible, you can still be forgiven. And like giving that energy to some of them will help them move into the light. So then we all eventually become one with source, like eventually, years and years, thousands of years from now. But that for some of them, it might take a long time, and there's, who knows if ever.
And who knows if ever, because they're just part of the experience. So they're here just facilitating the duality. And I think maybe at a level you don't need duality anymore. Maybe when you transmute it. Just had a guy named Samuel Chong on the Thaluba prophecy, and in there it speaks of some entities that are hermaphroditic because they've transcended duality. Even in that way, they no longer sexually reproduce because they have masters of all the elements, the proteins, everything, just make shit. And so they don't need that anymore. And so it seems like, you and I are here. Now we could read this a couple different ways. You and I are here because we haven't figured that out completely yet. Or my favorite take on this so far is that, if you talk about past lives and stuff, how I don't have direct access yet, how I'm open to but haven't seen yet, all of the Akashic and past lives and things like that. I kind of feel like our soul tribe, specifically like you, me, our soul tribe, are kind of like these illusion assassins. So we kind of come in lifetimes at a specific point and we just ramp it up and are just murdering the illusion like crazy just to help facilitate wake-ups. Almost like I used to do grand openings for Guitar Center when I worked for them, and I would fly all over the country and basically train, the new stores, how the culture was, how to do things, how to whatever. And so you want a consistent kind of a thing. And if you want super good results, you sent my team because we're the best, right? And so this is how I view our soul tribe, is it's basically like we're illusion assassins. We're matrix assassins, like the wonderful show. Mm-hmm. We come in and we wreck shit and help with the massive ascension wake-ups. So that's kind of how I choose to view it.
I feel that big time. And that makes some people very uncomfortable.
Sure.
Because it's like, no, I want to take the blue pill. Don't give me the red pill. Like, or, I've had people literally say that to me. I just want to wake up and have a cup of coffee and read the paper. I don't want to know what's going on. Like literally, like, I don't want to know. I'm just like, what?
Yeah. Like Cypher in the Matrix.
Yeah. I want the blinders to stay on. I want the blindfold to stay on, and that because it's scary. It takes courage to see.
Yeah, 100%.
It's still kind of shocking to me. But I think what's happening now is that we're getting squeezed more and more. It's like, how much does it take for people to wake up? Apparently a lot.
Because
right?
it's been in your face the whole time, and we've had many chances, and back to the thing, I was like, take off your mask. If you don't take off your mask, it's going to lead to vaccines. It's like this stairs, you can see it. And then people had the opportunity, didn't do it. And guess what happened? Now that, and then guess what happened? Now the next thing.
I said it from the very beginning. I remember, oh God, I've had like some of my old friends, they don't talk to me anymore. But I remember saying on Facebook something like, people are like, oh, just, it's just a few weeks. What's the big deal? I'm like, this is not going to be a few weeks. This is going to be a lot more than a few weeks. And I said to my husband, this is all about vaccines.
Yep.
And I remember I said to someone, I said, I hope I'm wrong. And, it's like one of the worst sorts of I told you so ever. But that's part of the process. Like, how much does it take people to wake up? Apparently it takes near death or death or watching sick, anyway. And it's heartbreaking to watch, for a lot of us to watch, but it's tricky. That's the hardest part.
The best understanding that I reached with this is you're not responsible for anyone else's karma. You're just not.
Absolutely.
I had a guy named Preston Dennett on a panel, super amazing author, Contact You to 11. Same thing. I've got to connect you with him. He's wonderful. And he was talking about a specific UFO case to where a woman got in a car accident and actually aliens came down. She didn't have like a near-death experience. Aliens came down and physically fixed her body. They said some of the wounds that you have, we can't fix because some of them are karmic. Isn't that interesting?
That's very interesting.
To think that some of the wounds that you were, even in that car wreck, like you didn't need all of them, but you just needed that one. And then they came in and facilitated sort of like an operation. It was months of, she died, like had a near-death experience, but it was interpreted by her as aliens, extraterrestrials, whatever. So I just thought that was interesting, that there are even some things on you that they can't fix because you're meant to deal with it. So you can think of people missing appendages or, blind and deaf, like whatever that is. And it's not necessarily karmic in nature, because I don't think that those are punishments. They just may be facilitating an experience here that you chose to have.
Yeah. And I can say something about that, because I think I talk to people a lot about this, and I think about it a lot in terms of like, why does somebody get born into a situation of suffering, like with missing an appendage or having some horrible illness or being born into some war-torn country?
Yes.
And this is a radical idea, and some people have a hard time understanding it. But at a certain level, I deeply believe that we choose that. Our higher selves choose that. And this is partly, working with the masters in the Akashic records in the in-between life place. It's like, all right, it's all about balance and understanding. And it's about balancing the scales, karma. So if you were saying before, if you were in a life where, you decided just for whatever reason, I want to learn what it's like to live, in poverty or in abject poverty. Because I was so rich my last life. I was a multimillionaire. So now I want the opposite, to understand what that's like. So we do. And so same thing goes for a lot of those difficult circumstances. And I think, not to say that everything in life, this is my belief, people can take what resonates and discard the rest. But, we also have free will. So, we make some of those big things, I think, are predetermined for us to learn from. And then we can kind of evolve beyond that. Or if we work on the lesson, because that's where the free will comes in. We can say, well, I'm not going to learn this lesson. I'm going to be mad about my situation. I'm going to be angry, and then, okay, maybe it's, who knows? I don't want to definitely say it's anybody's fault or they're, do anything wrong, but it's all about balance and understanding. And then, some of these destiny, sort of predetermined things, but coming right along with that is free will and soul lessons and soul choice. And it's like, well, if we didn't do such a good job in our current life, that's okay. We get another chance to try it again next time. Yeah. So it's really interesting, but it can be hard to talk about, because that's tricky subject. You're saying, I did this, I asked for this,
Right. And even, but that kind of acceptance I found has been the game changer for me. It's been the surrender. It's been like, oh, okay, well then there you go. Same thing with, I'm not responsible for waking people up. I went through this with conspiracy theorists. I'm not a conspiracy theorist any longer. I'm a conspiracy analyst, like Charlie Robinson says in Macroaggressions. I'll take a look at them, but I'm not going to get twisted and contribute fear to the system that just wants energy, right? So
yes, 100%.
It was that realization and waking up to that let stair steps into all the other things. Like you serve where you can, and that has a frequency, right? I'm always open to serve. I ask myself 4 questions every day. One of them is, how can I be a service for someone today? And so I facilitate that every single day. It's a mindfulness practice that I have that starts in the morning. And so, but there are some folks you just can't help, and you can feel the difference, and finally, like you're at this level. It's where you're like, I'm not responsible for waking other people up. I'm a lighthouse. This show goes out. People can find it anywhere that they want. We do a lot of search engine optimizations, not for numbers, so that it can be found, right? I went in with all the podcast listening apps I could find and got on every single damn one of them, just again to maximize the availability of people to be able to hear this information. But I'm not sponsoring, I'm not paying for ads, I'm not pushing things down people's throats, I'm not doing the salacious, like, you're going to fucking die and your face is going to melt off, find out on the next episode. And then, you know what I mean? So there's none of that in this. And it's that, place you get to, which is awesome. Something I wanted to note in the classiest way that I can is it's interesting that you provided a portal for your daughter named Alice, but your daughter Alice is the one that took you down the rabbit hole. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's funny. We chose that name for her, Alice in Wonderland, like going down the rabbit. It's funny. I wasn't even awake when I chose her name. I wasn't awake yet, but I was like, this name means something. And that little girl in Alice in Wonderland is pretty friggin' cool. So I think I'm going to name my daughter that. Well, my husband, he agreed. We talked about it, of course. But yeah, I think she did it without consciously knowing, it's because when, we have that amnesia when we come in to our human bodies. But yeah, for sure. For sure she did.
I was thinking that, or you're a huge Resident Evil fan. You know what I mean? Because her name is Alice, Project Alice.
I don't know. I haven't seen that movie.
No? Oh, they're fun. It's just a cool, like,
my husband keeps telling me I should watch it. I probably will. Just a name. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's more on the horror thriller side, but it's awesome. It's a deep underground base with genetic experiments and monsters and guns and like, it's a fun. It's a lot of fun. If you just want to put
Chris.
Put it
That's
in
the one thing I'll be like, the one thing I got out of this podcast is I'm going to watch Resident Evil.
Like the rest of it was garbage, but man, that Resident Evil, we're on it. I love this. So let's talk about healing through the Akashic. I'm very interested in this because again, I'm open to it, but haven't experienced it yet. So how do you go in and heal in the Akashic? What's that look like?
Well, just by being there, being in that dimension, it's just healing because it is divine light. It's the light of source, the light of God, whatever you want to call it. So, when I personally go into my records, if it's been a hard week or a hard day, I sometimes literally will feel like I'm laying down on a table and these beings are coming around me doing hands-on healing. For me, it's often, it's interesting because with the Akashic Records, it's like what happens is this sort of awareness comes in. It's not like, oh, I know that I'm being healed by Pleiadians right now, but you just feel that there's some energies and there's some tall light beings around me and they're doing like something. And then the word like psychic surgery will come up and they're pulling out different implants and pulling out different debris and things that don't belong in my body. And so I'll just lie there and just allow that to happen. And then sometimes Jesus is there, or I connect a lot with Jesus. So, maybe Mother Mary or who knows? I don't always know who they are. Sometimes it's Arcturians. I like them. They're very high vibration, multidimensional beings. So that's like the literal healing, that's like literal healing. But the other sorts of healing are, with ancestors. So people, healing the ancestral line and somebody who maybe has wronged me. I mean, when I do readings for people, it's like some people have been through some pretty horrific experiences, and like the grandfather who was abusive to them comes in, is kind of in the back, but he's like, not trying to come in and be like in your face, but he's like asking for forgiveness at some point. Wow. So there's that. Then there's healing like from past lives and, connecting with, picking up on a past life, can be very healing in itself, because you're like, well, why am I experiencing this problem in my life, like over and over, this pattern, and whatever it is, like dead end job or relationship issue over and over and over. And it's like, am I just screwed up and a complete mess? That's what we can think. No, it's because you're carrying this trauma from a past life of, who knows what it was. Like maybe I don't know, you were betrayed or something even worse. Like maybe somebody murdered you, or, it could be like anything. And so that's healing as well. So it's the other thing though, is with, it's so fascinating. We'll do a reading some point because you'll see. So what can happen is just somebody asks a question, and people will come into the records, a client, and they'll ask a question like, I'm going through this situation. Maybe it's like my mother and I have, a lot of issues and we can't get along. And why is this happening? And so what might come up, I'll hear that. I hear the question. I close my eyes, and it's kind of like just connecting in with the word, the energy moves upon the spoken words. There's energy being generated. It's kind of like the words that person says kind of like goes to the right chapter and pulls out information. And so what might come up might be like, well, your mother is scared of losing connection with you or something like that, which then that person hears that and they're like, oh my God, I've never thought of that. Yeah. Like I had no idea that that's what was going on. She's always mean and yelling at me and telling me I'm bad. And so what happens is in that, like one sentence can be like life-changing for that person.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. It's amazing. The person will be like, I've never would have thought of that. And all of a sudden there's a release and they're like, I can have compassion for this person. And then they're, all these cords of dysfunction and codependency are cut. And that is healing in itself.
That is
crazy.
So interesting. And it's wild how deep it goes, and that, you really need to seek the information to have this, right? Because I don't think this comes innate for people. Like people don't know, number one, what we're talking about. Like you said earlier, I mean, there's a certain, level of intelligence, I guess, or emotional intelligence, really, to be able to have these kind of conversations and to find it beneficial and not turn it away instantly or get upset that it challenges your beliefs or anything.
Yeah, that's happened. I've seen that happen a few times with people, but yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that there are things here that are so important and game changing, kind of like, having a psychedelic experience, having a near death experience that isn't really necessarily, I feel, available to everyone. Again, why I kind of think that there's a bunch of people that aren't real people running around here, because it's only for the select people that choose that. Right. And there's 80% of them running around that are tuned into the frequency that's here to tell you that you shouldn't be doing any of that and gaslighting you and making you feel ostracized if you don't and all that kind of stuff. I think only the real souls here kind of undertake that, those kind of journeys. That's why we're, drawn to them. I think it's just, again, a guess. I have no way of, proving that or anything.
Who knows? Yeah.
So let's talk about the expanding of light bodies, because I'm very interesting, again, like light bodies. You hear about etheric bodies. I hear this in the contact phenomena quite a bit, that they take really your astral body, and there's several examples of these levels of our existence, or way more than this just flesh and blood, this meat suit. What do you think?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I actually think the Akashic records are a layer of our light bodies. I always get them confused. Like there's the astral body, etheric body, there's the causal body, and some of them are like the same. But the more we expand out, the more we are in these sort of we're more in that sort of 5D conscious, even more than 70s, 8D, I suppose. But we're more connected in. I've never actually thought of this before or said it before out loud, but now it's coming in like that. We're in that light, which is more connected to source. And so we become more like source, and become, then eventually we might even not have physical bodies, but be like what happened. So who knows what happened to Jesus, but there's different theories that Jesus was actually like walking around in an astral body, that he ascended or that he was in. So you could look kind of translucent.
Yeah, like when he appeared to Mary. Yeah, like 3 days after. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if he really did die? I mean, there's a whole other thing. Like death was faked, and he and Mary Magdalene had children, and that's a whole nother thing. And that's what the big secret is.
Yeah, like Tupac.
That's whole other.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Like Tupac.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like Tupac, like who knows, JFK Jr. I mean, who knows? A bunch of people could talk about
Elvis. Yeah. Oh yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what the ascension process is ascending into like outer layers of our light bodies. And in those outer layers is more information, you know, like light is a frequency, and within light, there's information about who we are. And I think that's what we're doing when we go in the Akashic records. So the way that I always talk about that's what I know and I love, but you know, I always talk about it. But the way I access them is I actually visualize light, like I'm in a pillar of light flowing down through my body, out through my feet, and just, you know, flowing up and down. And I can feel this energy kind of like going out. It's like an expansiveness. So that literally is what's actually happening. It's funny, I've never verbalized this out loud, is that I'm actually probably accessing, me and anybody else is accessing this outer layer where my Akashic records are held.
It's so interesting. This is the same thing that field that holds like your Merkaba or something. The sixth sense, where you're able to pick up on things around you and you just can't explain why. It's like this field around you.
Yes.
But when you can expand and physically feel that, that's fascinating. You know, another thing that just came to mind as you were talking about this was it's kind of like the Akashic is like, if we're actors, and this is a huge Westworld type of a thing or whatever, you know, if you need help or you forget a line, let's say, just sticking with the metaphor, you can be like, line, and then the Akashic records is the director going, hey, you're supposed to do this now.
Right.
And read it back to you, and you're like, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah, I just forgot for a minute.
It's like clues, you know, like, oh, I'm not quite sure what's going on here. And you go in and you're like, oh yeah, that's the little hint or a little clue about what's going on. Yeah. They're not going to tell you what to do. That's because we have free will choice. And that's part of our job, is to make our free will choices to learn, but they're going to give us hints.
Yeah. In the Akashic They're like, records. Why don't you go look over there? I bet there's something over there, and they can't tell you exactly where. And you're just like, what? Yeah. It's just such an interesting experience. I think this place is so much fun. There's so much, I mean, on a different, I'm not sure exactly what happens here, but there's this, you know, it's been said that different ascended masters like Thoth, like even Mother, I don't know if Mother Mary, but her mother, and there's this book called Anagram Mother of Jesus, which is about Mary's mother. And there's different, you know, accounts of different people, like really, you know, enlightened sort of monks meditating for like years and living to be like 300 or 400 years old, you know, and that I think they're probably moving through their layers of light, but I'm not really sure exactly how that works, but that is probably what we're going to be able to do as humans, you know, who maybe it'll be hundreds of years from now, probably not in our lifetimes, but to kind of extend our longevity, because we could live for hundreds of years if we believed we could, and if we had some training about how to do it. Probably have to go under the pyramids, you know, be in a special chamber. I've heard this fun theory that oxygen is slowly killing us, and that that's the reason that we used to breathe hydrogen, and actually that the planet was much different, terraformed differently, and then part of this prison planet thing is they dropped a big dome over and they replaced it and made us breathe oxygen, which actually lowers our survivability by thousands of years. It's crazy.
Interesting. I've not heard that, but I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, and think about it. It's a smart move. It's kind of like how they don't teach cursive in school anymore, so kids can't read the Declaration of Independence or historical documents or anything like that. It's the same idea. It's like, okay, well, let's make sure that their lifespans don't go to 10,000 years like ours. Let's make sure that they're like 80 to 100 max. And those last 20 years are just useless.
Recycle.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't be able to build up enough knowledge really to kind of figure a way out, right? But again, at a level, it's like governed like that because it's necessary, because it's facilitating the experience, right?
Well, that's what it makes it so hard for us to understand the truth. You know, like we have to piece it all together. So there's all these, these drawings of giants. You know, there's statues of giants that once walked the earth, and there's these bird, there's like bird gods, and that. Why are those drawn in caves? Like, why are all these different? Why did they have elongated skulls? You know, why did the Egyptian? Some of the Egyptians have elongated skulls. I was told in art history class in college, they just wrapped their heads really tightly. And I remember being
binding. Yeah.
That is complete bullshit. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, and it doesn't because on several of the skulls, actually, you can see, I forget the damn name of the line. I wanted to be smart and remember it, but there's a line that runs through your cranium, right? And they're the plates that fuse together when you're a baby. And those react differently depending on how you grow, and they can tell that. And so the elongated skulls, like Akhenaten and stuff like that, I want to say that one they can tell was not bound. Like they bound their babies to mimic the gods. So if nothing else, there was definitely a progenitor of that, and that they were trying to mimic it. Have you ever heard of cargo cults? Have you ever heard of this?
No.
This is such a cool story. I love this. Absolutely true, by the way. So after World War II in the Polynesian Islands, we had runways, or during World War II rather. So we needed to use those as, launch off points for bases, right? So we came in, built all these runways and stuff. There was an indigenous tribe living there, never seen white man before. So we fly in with these airplanes and we're building all this stuff and we bring all this food and everything. And they actually, in exchange, the U.S. government gave them a bunch of food like corned beef and just canned goods, stuff like that, things that they'd never experienced before, food that they didn't need to hunt for, right? And so they traded them all this stuff in return for use of their island. Well, after the war, they left. The U.S. left, and there was no need to be there anymore, so that food stopped coming. And the people were like, hey, we really like that. That was pretty cool. So what this tribe did was that they went out, they pulled materials from the jungle, wood, leaves, all of that stuff, and built 2-scale replicas of the bombers that flew in. And they set them on the beach and lit fires. And because they were trying to call the planes back in. The same descriptions as like sky gods or anything else. This is this like, calling into this yearning to be this different thing. And this is how the binding of the head also relates to the gods that they saw. So what they mimic, they found divine, right?
Interesting.
And so the binding, there's possibly examples of it being mimicry, but they needed something amazing to want to deform their kid's head to try to look like, right? It must have been pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's that. And then do you know the book, The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life?
Yeah. Drunvalo Melchizedek. I have it. It's around here somewhere. Yeah.
It's such a great book. And eventually, like we were guided to things. You start to read things. By the way, you probably know about Zecharia Sitchin. Do you know who he is?
I got like 8 books sitting right. See that center column? There's about 8 books sitting right. 12th Planet, all of it. Yeah.
My husband's reading the 12th Planet right now, and I find it a little boring. I was like, I just want to read the channel stuff. But there's like the Nephilim, and then there's in the Bible, as you know, of course, in the beginning of the Bible, they say, there were gods that once walked the earth, and they call them the Elohim. Mm-hmm. And then they do mention the Nephilim, which are, connected to the Anunnaki. But it's like, it's hard for us to even nobody. I think realistically, very few people, unless you're kind of channeling a lot of information, if you're not channeling it, it's hard to know what actually happened because they've intentionally destroyed so much evidence. So it makes it almost impossible for us to find out.
I mean, and even that though. So I've got this huge, and I know at a level, I think that all of it could just be the same thing, like a jinn or something like that, like one trickster entity, and not necessarily a trickster in a bad way, just that it's able to shapeshift, it's able to create things in your mind, it can do screen members. So therefore, it can be anything. It can be a Pleiadian, it can be a Grey, it can be a Bigfoot, it can be poltergeist. It can, camouflage itself and then move stuff around in your house, and now you're thinking ghosts. It could all be the same damn thing. What's also very interesting about the contact phenomenon, where I'm kind of getting to with this, is it's a hijacking of your cognitive ability to interpret the world around you. And they can do that in any way that they want. They do it in a way that, like, if you're super religious, then they'll appear to you as an angel or a demon, whatever facilitates the lesson that you need to learn. So I kind of picture it like, okay, Rachel needs to know about this. She's at that point in her life. Okay, cool. She's about to have an alien contact. Okay, what does she think? Pleiadians. Okay, we're going to do Greys this time. And it's like some djinn or some whatever putting on like an alien suit and like, hey, can you help me with my zipper back there? And then, they dress up like this thing and then engage in you within that way because that's what you expected to see.
Absolutely.
The subjectivity of all of this is what's so fascinating to me, how everyone has different experiences.
Yeah. It's funny because I've thought about that with angels because I believe in angels and I feel their energy, but I also am like, well, they just aliens, are they?
Or do they only exist because you believe in them? Like, Tinkerbell, right. I think it was right there in our faces the entire time. As long as you're clapping for it, meaning giving it your energy and attention, you bring it to life. It's the old egregores, anything like tulpas, all that thought form stuff, perhaps the only reason it exists, and what will really bake your noodle is perhaps the only reason the lizard turds and Klaus Schwabs exist, because you feel that they need to facilitate an awakening. Maybe if we just stop looking at it. It goes to what I was talking about on that panel, meaning that I view everyone in their highest timeline now. I have shifted the energy in which I view even those that don't make the decisions I would find to be valuable for myself, which is none of my business, but especially the horrible shit. I'm just like, you're on your highest timeline. You're figuring it out.
Right. And that's also that duality too, because, I definitely went down the rabbit hole with all the conspiracy theory stuff. And I, like you, like I've pulled back to a lot of it's true, but also not all of it. I think, so many things are meant to confuse us, but for me, it's like, if what I'm reading or experiencing or feeling is creating fear. Right. If it's creating, sometimes things happen and it might create fear, but it's real. Or whatever real is. But for me, I'm like, if it creates fear in me or anger, it is not for my highest good. Period. That's it. So it's like, I'm aware of it. It's like another highway. Like I'm aware of some of these things, or I believe that are happening, but I'm not even going to give my energy into it anymore. I'm not going to focus on it, because then I get sucked into that vibration of fear. And there's a lot of people in the awakening community, many of whom I love dearly, who are kind of in that fear sort of, it's almost like a 4D, like a little bit stuck, like not to say that I'm in 5D, I think I probably go in and out, definitely have 3D, we all are going back and forth between 3D, 4D, 5D, but I think there's some real, it's very, this sort of, even as I say this now, I'm thinking, well, I'm saying them, I'm saying them, like placing the blame on some other, outside like entity that maybe I've just conjured that as a way to, avoid taking personal responsibility.
But this,
right?
What you're saying right here is so important, and I'm so grateful to get to this with you in real time. This is the real awareness. It's not. There's nothing out there. There's no anything over there, and especially the things we don't like. It's about taking like spiritual responsibility almost. You're like, okay, I needed these things to wake me up, and now I'm going to be a light in a different way to where it doesn't take somebody going through that for them to also receive the same information. That's what the experiences like what we experience facilitate for us, and then now we are here to help everybody walk everybody home. Yeah. It's a 100%. Wild concept. So I'm so proud of you. Funny. I'm so proud of you.
Oh,
that's a big one. Well, that's a tricky one. It's a
tricky one. It's, and I often forget it because it's pretty easy to be like, because we see that what they're doing like right in front of us, but I think that's also 3D. So it's like, that's a 3D perspective. From the 5D perspective, we're all one. There is no us versus them. It's a unity consciousness. Some of that's just a projection of my own ego, so it's like, but that can be like, my God, like what, we move in and out. And that, I remember when I first started waking up, I was like, this is why some people are institutionalized. You have to keep a hold on reality.
Dude, it's so easy to lose it with this thing. And I kind of, one of the other things that kind of brings me a little bit more comfort with that, especially now that I'm kind of like, okay, I take ownership over the lizard turd side of me, because even Jesus and the devil, like, we're hanging out, you know what I mean? They're like bartering over, who was that poor bastard, Job, that they put through all that shit, and they were just kind of dicking with him, right? It's a whole interesting way that they both play out. But really, when you kind of get to that point, then that's when you become so attractive with the information, though, because now you're not scaring people, but the scary people in the 4D need to be there to pull the 3D people out. They need to speak on the same frequency, if that makes sense. Yeah. So they need to dip into the front lines really and kind of pull people out, and then we're kind of there to get folks past the other little bit of it. But yeah, you bounce back and forth, you weave in and out, because there's still lessons along the way. And what's really interesting, I heard a guy named Pat Mahan that I've had on the show. He runs an amazing show called Like Attracts Like. Again, got it noted. I'll definitely introduce you. He was talking about one time the awareness of these situations and really looking at it from a perspective of like, okay, I'm here to heal me. And once you heal you and you get to these amazing levels, it's not that you're oblivious to anything, let's say low vibe or negative, because now what you are, an anchor, you're like a light for moths, right? So now all of the people with low vibe energies come to you. And this is where like the resolve starts, because they need you to be who you are now, because that's what will facilitate their wake up as well. Mm-hmm. So it's just this really interesting thing. It's not like you're spared from those energies when you get to a certain point of awareness, and you're just like, thank God, I don't got to dick with that anymore. It's like, no, now you dick with it quite a bit more, but you're in such a different mode of service that you're able to handle it,
Yeah. There's certainly many situations in my life, not as many now as there used to be, where I'm very aware that I have to adjust my vibration and I have to protect myself too. But I'm also, and it's like, well, why do I have to go deal with this? Like, why do I have to be in this situation, where I don't really want to be here? I don't want to be here at all. But I know that I usually know that there's a reason, that either I'm there to be of service with, or I'm there to learn, from this lesson, from this person, from this situation. But it is tricky, because I think this was one of the things before we were, had this talk on your podcast. I was thinking about one of the biggest things that a lot of people I work with struggle with, and not all of them are aware that this is happening, but moving between 3D and 5D. It's like, well, I'm still in the family that I incarnated with. They're still my family. I still have to find enough money to pay my mortgage or my rent this month. I still have to do all this annoying 3D stuff that I don't want to deal with. And I just want to meditate all day and astrally travel. And, it's like, that can be really tricky, because and that's a whole other topic of like, that's a wonderful one.
We'll do that next time, because that's a huge one. Living in the 3D and balancing between the 4 and 5D. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but beyond just like the material sort of things, like, paying the bills or whatever, I think it's also just different vibrational situations with different people, and not judging it. And believe me, I still need to work on this, judging it as bad, like, oh, they're just asleep and ignorant or something. But actually I have something to learn from them as well. Maybe I'm here to be of service because that's part of my soul vibration, to be of service. But I also need to come from a place of humility and not thinking that I have all the answers. And that's something that I definitely, I always am trying to work on, like their ego, what's happening with my ego. Am I thinking that I know something that maybe somebody else doesn't, even if they don't, if I know, it's hard to say, like, awake, not awake. We have to be careful with that. But, there's so much more. And I think I really, one of the things that, even though I'm not into any religion at all, but I learned a lot from Buddhism, which is more of a philosophy, I guess. But I learned so much from Buddhism because of that sort of how to move beyond ego. And that's a whole other topic too. It's like that is for people who are, if we consider ourselves light workers or, ascending souls, or working on moving into 5D and all these words we use. It's like, but we still have our egos, and how do we become aware of what our egos will tell us, including you're better than or more awake than other people, and how do we move through that? Even though, and some people that are in 3D can be quite nasty and awful, and we have to protect ourselves. It's a balance, there's really no one answer.
You nailed it. I think that is the answer. It's balance. I think that it is being able to be super high vibe and meditate when you can, but also stand in a line at DMV with compassion and hold space for people around you. Because I really do think that part of this, I have it written down right here so I never forget it. Respecting everyone at their own level of consciousness is part of consciousness. Yeah. And it's that patience and compassion, because, to be argumentative with somebody about how wrong they are and how they see the world in a way that's destructive, that it's never useful, ever. You're not. And really, when you sit there and kind of think of it like that's a representative for a system, right? They're obviously not curious. You can tell people that reach out to you, because I get this all the time on the show, emails from people you would never think to be asking questions about aliens, financial guys, big, multi-million-dollar CEOs of stuff, going like, I saw a UFO and I think I got abducted, talk to me about it. They're not spreading this information. So it goes across the board. It's not somebody writing me, and I thank God I just don't get this. It's not somebody going, your stuff's dumb, the people you have on are stupid, and your show sucks, things like that, because I don't attract that. I don't put out the vibe to where I invite that. Like, it's not what I'm here for. I'm sure to have the conversations because I think it's all fucking amazing. So it's like this energy that you put out, but also it's the balance. I mean, that you again nailed it with this. It is the balance that I think is really what we're here to learn. And really why I think this is for two main reasons. One, because duality is so pervasive here. And if there's two options, either is too extreme to say that this is 100% good all the time. So really what I think is you're here to kind of navigate between the two to find that center road. And also, if you look at the tree of life that it's in Drumvallo's book, the tree of life, of course, it has one center line going all the way up, which means connected to source, and the other two lines that are fixed and stopped. They basically have endpoints to them. I picture this as duality, and the middle line as basically your shot to source. You're going to bounce between them because that's how you figure it out. There's also that cone iconography in all ancient writings and everything. It's basically that you start on this big, if you want to look at it side by side, but really it's more of a spiral, right? Then basically you kind of focus in and that spiral gets more tight because you kind of achieve this middle road or this balance, right? And I think that that's what duality serves for us. It's just an idea. I don't know where I'm at with it.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I mean, everything, I love these conversations so much because everything you're saying is like expanding my consciousness in some way, because it's different the way, like we all have different, certain vibrations, I guess, of things that we gravitate towards and things we read about. But somebody else reads about something, or, somebody else absorbs some other sort of information or just downloads. And then it's contributing to our just awakening and our ascension. Is just amazing. It's
incredible.
So cool.
And I love this too. And we're going to wrap it up here. I'm going to give you the last word, but we've been in an amazing flow here and I absolutely adore you. Like, of course, your family, of course you come on anytime and I'm going to get a few people in contact with you, but also we're going to do some more stuff like this. So
yeah.
If you don't mind, I've just, like I said, had an amazing time with you. So if you don't mind, just tell us some final thoughts on folks. I'm going to be linking all the ways to find you, but if you'd like to just tell people as well, just so it's fresh, please do that. But Rachel Horton White, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. My final thoughts are for people who are listening, if parts of this have resonated with you, just trust that they've resonated for a reason, and that you are awakening, and there's those little sparks of light going off that keep holding that light within you. And it all comes back to what you feel in your heart is resonant. It's what do you feel that is true for you? Take that with you, and that will continue to expand. Yeah, it's just been a blessing and honor. Thank you so much, Brandon. I love having these conversations and connecting with, my soul group like you. So in terms of people finding me, I have soulfulworkconsulting.com is my website. I also have another one, rachelhortonwhite.com. I didn't even mention this, but I recently wrote a book, Tools for the Awakening Soul, a guide to activate your intuition and uncover your life's purpose. Very long. Which has all these sorts of, tools to help people awaken, but it moves through, meditation, creating a vibration of your future self. I call meditation quieting the mind, which is essential, to kind of bring us into that openness and open our third eye and all that. I'll move into our higher self and then move through ego. There's inner child, inner critic, all kinds of past life, current life healing, past life. I already said past lives. There's information about opening the third eye and connecting with divine guidance and how to do that, how to access the Akashic records, and then working with energy and emotions. And then the book ends. It's a guidebook. It's like a writing exercises. So you write in the book and it's designed to be tools, because it's like, how do we do this? I'm awakening. I'm seeing things. I want to feel better. A lot of people are interested we're in varying levels. We want to maybe learn how to become a Reiki practitioner, do psychic readings, or have a podcast like you do. But we also don't know how, and that, or we have these limiting beliefs, like from childhood, somebody told us we couldn't, or that was weird, or I certainly had that. And so we have to clear that stuff. And that's the shadow work, that how we move into higher states of consciousness. So anyway, that book is I have it behind me. I don't have a copy with me now, but it took me 6 years to put it together. And I hope that if you're here, that you might check it out. It's on my website, Tools for the Awakening Soul. So yeah, that's pretty much, I'm on Facebook and Instagram under Soulful Work Consulting, I think, or Soulful Work Intuitive Consulting. And that's how people can find me. Happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Badass. And I will, of course, be linking all the ways to find you, your book, which, yes, I had noted to talk to you about, but we just went for it here. So, folks, go check out her book. Yeah. Go check out the book, and I'll definitely put a picture of it in the intro and outro for this video as well. So check the show notes for the link to the video and go check that out, because she's delightful and lovely, and you just got to watch this anyway. So thank you so much, Rachel. We'll absolutely do this again. You're incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is awesome. Thanks, Brandon.
Just wanted to take a moment and thank Rachel Horton White for coming by and hanging out with us. Rachel, you are welcome any damn time. That was amazing. Make sure that you guys check the show notes for all of the ways to contact her, and she does incredible work. So definitely book an Akashic reading with her. I've got mine coming up very soon, and I can't wait. So thank you again, Rachel. I really appreciate it. Also, if you want to see more of her, she actually joined us for an amazing panel chat that we had with Christopher the Astro Medium, Amy Belair, Stuart Pierce was on that, and Ben Carroll. And it's called Ultra Terrestrials. It's in the Expansive Insider. So if you want to sign up to become an Expansive Insider to take advantage of that, also it's a wonderful, wonderful way to support the show that supports the shit out of you, expanding your reality, right? We're all moving forward into greater, grander versions of ourselves, and that is one of the most aligned ways to be a part of this show. Tons of bonus conversations, all the panel stuff's over there. It's an incredible value. It's a stupid value, to be honest with you. But again, it's up there, and she joined us for one of those, so make sure that you guys check that out. It's linked in the show notes. Also, while you're down there, check out our resource links. We've got Food Forced Abundance, Get Your Freedom from Fear On, Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, as well as if you want to start your own podcast, check the link down there that says Start Your Own Podcast. Red Circle is who we just partnered with. Could not recommend them enough, so that's what we're doing. Also, the Manifestor's Guide, if you are ready to really step up your game into the next level of becoming the greatest, grandest version of yourselves, and this is not for the faint of heart, by the way, only if you're very serious, click that link. But if you're doing that, he has a sweet scholarship deal that he does just for you, the listeners of this show. To sweeten the deal even more, go to checkout and type in Expanding Reality, all caps, no spaces, and that's how you do that. So I want to thank you guys all from the bottom of my heart for hanging out with us and for expanding your reality with us with these amazing guests, these incredible conversations. I love hearing from guests that get responses from you, the audience, that just thank them for what they're doing and just tell them that they're amazing. You don't go get every damn book I recommend or anything like that. I do that on purpose so that you can enjoy those things, but it's not a requirement. Sometimes just a little message, sends a huge heaping spoonful of love to these amazing guests that come over and spend their time with us, guys. So definitely something I would encourage y'all to do, and thank you all for being so engaging and such an amazing audience. Now go out into this beautiful, beautiful place, whatever the hell this thing is, guys, and pick up a piece of litter, smile at everybody you come across, just be pleasant. It'll change your life, just the simple act of being pleasant. While you're doing that, go ahead and if you want to step your game up, buy somebody in line around you a coffee or a meal. Something super small goes a huge way in the collective. Also, get out of the left-hand lane. If you've got somebody behind you wanting to pass there, this is not something a lot of people know about, but we're doing God's work here with this. So get out of the left-hand lane. And above all and anything else, guys, go out into this beautiful place, whatever the hell this thing is, and y'all just be good to one another. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for engaging, and just being the most amazing, badass audience ever. Just keep moving forward, guys. We're doing great, so just keep moving forward. We will see you next time.
At Sleep Outfitters Outlet, great sleep is a big deal. Save 40 to 60% every day on every Sealy, Stearns & Foster, and Tempur-Pedic. Queens as low as $249. Customer exchanges, closeouts, and floor samples. Inventory changes daily, so come in for your dream deal today. With no credit needed financing, expert advice, and up to 60% off retail, it's never been easier to get the sleep and savings you deserve. Go to SleepOutfittersOutlet.com for financing details and to find a store near you.